What would you say are some of your biggest accomplishments? Or maybe I'll phrase it this way. How about your biggest successes that you have had in life? I mean, maybe for some of you, maybe you can say your biggest accomplishment is that you've paid off your house. I mean, I wish that was true for me. Or maybe you can say, I worked for 30 years for the same company and I traveled my way up the ladder. Or maybe you're saying that your biggest accomplishment is that you ran a marathon. Awesome, good for you. Or maybe it's that you bought your first car for yourself. Or maybe your biggest accomplishment was that you graduated high school or college. Or maybe your biggest accomplishment is the kids that are running all around you right now. Or maybe your biggest accomplishment is something that's out there, that's something that is still yet to come, something that you are working actively towards. I think we always like to measure our accomplishments. My daughter Mackenzie is a natural student. She just was born that way. Not because I ever helped her. She just was always really, really good at school. And she was always so proud of her straight A's. As long as I could remember, that girl could just kill it at school. But in middle school, my husband and I were watching her grades, and then we watched how she'd start to sort of obsess over every single point, over every single assignment. And Ryan and I, as we watched her kind of obsessing over like maybe one missing point and arguing to get that point back, we recognized something growing in our Mackenzie that we have seen in ourselves. We recognized perfectionism. It's like perfectionism was rooting itself into her, kind of like an addiction. She was chasing success. She was chasing perfect grades, and she was increasingly afraid of failing. She was afraid of making any tiny mistake, of getting something wrong on an assignment. And this moved from her grades to the condition of her bedroom, to her friendships, to her in and outside of school activities, and into her relationship with us. And finally, we had to just talk to her about it because Ryan and I, we had struggled with this achievement trap ourselves. We had struggled with perfectionism ourselves. You see, I think sometimes we're given the lie that our performance, how we perform in this world, will then bring us happiness. That success is equal to worth. Think about it. I think we're told this all the time. Author Tony Campolo talks about it this way. He says, from a time a child starts school, they're told that they have to get good grades. Why? So that they can get into a good college. And when you go to a good college, you want to get good grades. Why? So you can get a good job. Why? So you can earn money. Right. The question is, though, is money really the end game here? Because we all know there's never enough of that. Is success in our world really based only on our performance? Or think about it the other way. If I'm not successful, if I fail at something, what effect will that have on my life? You see, I think we're living in a perfectionism culture, one that equates success with happiness. And even though we don't even want to reinforce this, I think we reinforce this all the time. If success and happiness go hand in hand, then the alternative is really scary. What happens if we fail? What happens if we don't measure up? What happens if we sin? Then maybe we'll never, ever be happy. And sometimes our perfectionism, it leads us all to want to be all in for success, from our clothes to our hair, to our friendships, to our house, and to our car, and to give the whole world this image of us that's perfect. But sometimes our perfectionism, it can actually do the opposite to us too. It can cause us to not even want to try, because why if we can't get it perfect? And we think that we need to reach certain standards in order to feel good about ourselves. But here's the thing, my friends. With God, this isn't even close to the case. You see, God sees us and this world entirely differently. And there's this big churchy word that we use for it. We call it justification. It's how we are justified or how we are made right with God. You see, God doesn't need anything from us. We are justified or made right with God because of God's work on the cross, because of what Jesus did on the cross, not because of anything that we do or don't do. Here's what the Bible has to say about it in the book of Corinthians. It says, God made him, Jesus, to have no sin, to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God, or in him we might become justified to God. Or it says this in the book of Romans, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and we are all justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. You see, we are justified by what has already been done before you or I were ever born. We were justified by God's work on the cross, not by what we do, so that we can be free to let go of the success equals worth lie. You see, that year in junior high, after many talks with our daughter, Mackenzie, Ryan and I decided to offer her, this is bold, I'll tell you, offer her a $20 to get a B in one of her classes. I know it sounds crazy, but she needed to learn to let herself off the hook. She needed to learn to give herself some grace, to release herself from her own expectations and all those little messages she picked up along the way. And for her, it was really hard for her to get past that. It was really hard for her to let it go, but she did get a B. And you know what? It was no big deal. Friends, worth comes by who God claims you to be, not in what you do. This week, we're exploring a topic that we're calling searching for significance. If you're somebody who is searching for significance in your life, this is the week for you. If you're watching us on Facebook, would you go ahead and share this as well as tag somebody who maybe you think is struggling a little bit with this now? If you're joining us on YouTube, would you hit the bell? And if you're joining us on cable access, I'm so honored that you're here with us tonight. Will you join us again tomorrow?
On this journey, I get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. My story isn't over, my story's just begun. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Ooh. The end game, the journey's where you are. You never wanted perfect, you just wanted my heart. And the story isn't over if the story isn't good. Failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Come home, the helpless find home. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Prison doors fling wide, the dead come to life. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Miracles take place, the cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in shame